When I heard the scream, I realized we weren't alone anymore. In the heart of the pitch-black night, where silence enveloped the small village like a tattered blanket, Adam stood on the threshold of his house. Adam, a 24-year-old with messy black hair and perpetually cautious eyes, worked as a local guide for the nearby forests, knowing every inch of them. But tonight was different. It started simply. Faint taps on the window, then unintelligible whispers seeping through the walls. Adam thought it was just his imagination, but when he saw strange shadows dancing outside his window, his heart stopped momentarily. Those shadows weren't human. He stepped into the yard, holding a weak flashlight. As he scanned the area, he heard it. A piercing scream mixed with pain and terror, coming from deep within the forest. What froze him in place was what he saw next. Something large, its misshapen wings hanging unnaturally, flying away into the dark sky, carrying something or someone. A chill ran down Adam's spine, and he knew the danger ahead wouldn't be fleeting. The next morning, Adam decided to head to the forest where the scream had come from. He hadn't slept after what he'd seen the previous night, and every time he tried to convince himself it was just his imagination, the image of those deformed wings haunted him. He gathered some basic supplies, a strong flashlight, a hunting knife, and a water bottle, then set off. The forest had always been mysterious, but today it felt completely different. The air was heavier, saturated with the smell of damp earth and decaying plants. The tall trees blocked most of the sunlight, making the place seem perpetually twilight. As he walked, Adam noticed something strange. The leaves were covered with a layer of shiny black dust, as if something unnatural had passed through them. He stopped at an open area where the ground was littered with signs of recent disturbance. Broken branches and large, unfamiliar footprints. These prints were deep, as if something massive had walked here. Suddenly, he heard a faint sound, like a distant murmur. Approaching cautiously, Adam found something that froze his blood. A piece of blood-stained cloth lying on the ground, and nearby, scattered small bones. As Adam tried to make sense of what was happening, the more he explored, the stronger the feeling that he wasn't alone. Something was watching him, moving between the shadows, hiding behind the trees. Just as he considered turning back, he heard a new sound, heavy footsteps approaching him. When he turned, there was no one. Adam tried to convince himself that everything he'd seen was just an illusion, but the heavy footsteps he'd heard earlier were all too real. Turning again toward the source of the sound, he raised his flashlight high to illuminate the surrounding area. The trees were silent now, but the shadows seemed to move independently of the objects casting them. Adam felt as though the forest itself had begun to breathe. As he continued walking, he began noticing even stranger things. On the trunk of a large tree, there was a strange carving deeply etched into the bark. A circle surrounded by symbols resembling ancient letters, yet entirely unfamiliar. When he touched the carving with his hand, he felt a slight tingling in his fingertips, as if the tree carried some strange energy. He backed away quickly, but couldn't stop thinking that these symbols might be a warning or an invitation. While walking cautiously, he heard whispers coming from afar. The whispers were unclear but carried a pleading tone, as if someone was trying to say something without being able to. Adam stopped and looked around, but there was no one. Then suddenly he heard his name called faintly. Adam. The voice came from behind him, but when he turned, there was nothing but thick darkness. His heartbeat quickened. He knew something was following him, but he couldn't see it. As he walked faster, he noticed something else. A pair of small, glowing eyes watching him from among the trees. Approaching slowly, when he shone the flashlight on them, they disappeared instantly, as if they had never existed. What truly terrified him, however, was what he found next. A small child sitting on the ground, crying quietly. When Adam approached, the child slowly turned his head, revealing a grotesquely distorted face with an unnaturally wide smile. In a hoarse voice, the child said, "He's coming." Before Adam could process what the child had said, the boy disappeared, as if the ground had swallowed him whole. Adam stood frozen, his flashlight trembling in his hand, feeling as though the entire forest was closing in on him. The air grew colder, and he began hearing a strange thumping sound, like the heartbeat of a giant pulsing deep within the earth. Adam tried to retreat, but he heard the heavy footsteps again, this time much closer. He turned quickly to see something massive moving between the trees. He couldn't make out the details clearly, but he caught a glimpse of a deformed wing passing swiftly across the light before vanishing. The chill he felt was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. It was as if the creature was watching him and reveling in his fear. Who's there?" Adam whispered in a shaky voice. But the response came in the form of a sharp screech, like claws dragging across a metal plate. Then the air around him grew denser, and he felt something approaching him slowly. 1 step, 2 steps. Then he heard heavy breathing right behind him. He turned quickly and saw a pair of glowing eyes staring at him from the darkness. This time, there was no room for doubt. The creature was real, and it was here. Adam raised the flashlight toward the eyes, revealing something unbelievable. The creature resembled a giant bat, but it was far from natural. Its body was covered with torn, dangling skin, and its deformed wings bore the marks of old burns. Its eyes were hollow, but glowed with a faint red light. As Adam stared at it, the creature slowly opened its mouth, revealing rows of uneven, razor-sharp teeth. Before Adam could move, the creature attacked. It lunged at him with astonishing speed, but vanished just before reaching him. Adam fell to the ground, feeling a sharp pain in his arm. When he looked, he saw deep scratches as if something had clawed him with sharp talons. "It's real! It's real!" Adam whispered to himself as he tried to get up. But he now realized he wasn't just being watched. He was the target. Adam was gasping heavily, blood dripping from his scratches as he tried to gather his strength. There was no time to think or hesitate. The creature was close, and it might be watching him from the shadows right now. He retreated slowly toward a large tree, using its trunk as a barrier between him and the unknown. His mind raced, trying to devise a plan to survive. "I need to get out of here. But how?" Adam whispered to himself as he pressed on his wound to stop the bleeding. The forest was like a maze, and every step could lead him deeper into danger. Then he remembered something strange. The carving on the tree he'd seen earlier. Perhaps that symbol was a clue, or even a trap. But it was all he had now. Adam decided to return to that site, thinking it might be a starting point to understanding what was happening. As he walked, he began noticing more similar symbols carved into the trees, as if they were pointing to a specific path. However, there was something else troubling him: the sounds. The whispers had grown clearer now, as if they were gathering around him, murmuring incomprehensible words in a strange language. When Adam reached the tree with the first carving, he found it surrounded by small black stones arranged in a circle. Inside the circle, there were additional engravings, as if someone had been summoning or trapping something. Adam felt a strong pulse beneath his feet, as if the earth itself was alive. Then he heard a new voice. "Don't touch it." Adam trembled and looked around, but there was no one. Slowly, he realized the voice came from within, deep in his memory, as if it were a suppressed call. But before he could think more, he heard a sharp screech again. The creature was returning, and this time it was much closer. "No time to think!" Adam shouted to himself, making a quick decision. He picked up one of the black stones and placed it in his pocket, then began running toward the distant light that seemed like an exit from the forest. Running was all Adam could do. Each step made a muffled sound on the damp ground, but he knew the creature was chasing him. The air grew colder, and the whispers around him turned into faint laughter, as if the entire forest was mocking him. The rays of sunlight filtering through the trees began to fade, as if the darkness itself was swallowing the place. When Adam reached the edge of the forest, he found it standing at a steep cliff leading to a deep valley. Ahead of him was an old, rickety bridge that looked unstable, while behind him, he heard the sound of wings beating the air forcefully. He turned quickly and saw the creature emerging from among the trees. This time, there was no escape. The creature was too close, its glowing eyes staring directly at him. "You can't run." The voice came again, but this time it wasn't a whisper. It was loud and clear, emanating from the creature's distorted mouth. Adam felt the ground beneath him tremble, as if the creature wasn't just a living being, but a destructive natural force. Adam raised the black stone he had taken from the circle and remembered something strange. When he touched the symbol on the tree, he had felt a tingling in his fingertips. Perhaps this stone held some power. Taking a step forward, he threw it toward the creature with all his strength. The moment the stone hit the ground in front of the creature, a blinding explosion of light occurred. The creature let out a deafening scream and began retreating, as if the light was hurting it. But it didn't disappear completely. Instead, it gradually faded, returning to the shadows. But Adam had no time to celebrate. The rickety bridge awaited him, and he knew it was his only way out. He began crossing slowly, each step emitting a worrying creak from the rotten wood. When he reached the middle, he heard a new sound, a powerful heartbeat, as if the creature had regained its strength. He looked back and saw the creature standing at the beginning of the bridge, watching him with eyes full of rage. Then, with a single movement, the creature leapt toward him. In the moment the creature leapt toward him, Adam felt as though time had stopped. He saw the bridge collapse under the weight of the incoming force, the rotten wood tumbling into the deep valley below. Without a second thought, he jumped forward with all his might, using the momentum of his last step to save himself. He landed hard on solid ground on the other side, gasping for breath. He quickly turned to watch the creature disappear into the darkness as the bridge collapsed entirely. The air was heavy, but he felt a fleeting moment of relief until he heard a new sound. "Adam!" The whisper came again, but this time it was directly behind him. He turned quickly and saw the child he'd found in the forest, his grotesque face still bearing that unnatural smile. "You weren't alone there, and you won't be alone here." Before Adam could respond, the child vanished, leaving him alone in the oppressive silence. He looked around and realized that although he had escaped the forest, something had followed him here. Hours later, Adam reached the village. Everyone looked at him suspiciously, as if they knew something he didn't. When he entered his house, he glanced at the mirror and saw a pair of red eyes glowing in the darkness behind him.